that is happening on behalf of the graduate school task force. And I am going to try to keep track of time, and I'm sure the students in presence here will make sure that I don't go over. So let me move on to that. So today I'll give you a little bit of background about, kind of what we're working on, the task force charge timeline, and then the proposal that we are working on, and then some plans for the task force going into the next academic year, and then take some Q&A. So just as a little bit of background, I'm sure you all are aware of Vision 2020, which was our sort of visioning document setting the framework for Texas A&M as we aspire to become a top 10 public institution. One of the, what we would call imperatives, which is priorities, was strengthening our graduate programs. Kind of at the midway point of that visioning document, we had a group called an academic master planning group. And that group, after looking at the progress over 2000 to kind of almost 2010, decided that perhaps we were not making the progress that we wanted in really strengthening graduate education. And so a task force was formed at that time called Graduate Experiences. And that task force actually offered some priorities and recommendations that they thought would help move us closer to our goals by 2020. And they focused on quality of life, practices related to compensation and benefits, and professional development. And kind of a little after that time, I actually became the leader for the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies. And so over the past 10 years, we have really been using those recommendations as our priorities as we made investments and established programs to further advance the university. So around 2018, 2019, there were some conversations we had a new provost, and we're just talking about maybe our university central graduate unit being an office, and maybe what things might we need to do to continue to move us forward. So we commissioned a report by Hanover Research to do some benchmarking, and then we also visited 3 graduate units, one at the University of Texas at Austin, University of Michigan, and UCLA, just to look at how some of our aspirational peers structure graduate education. And at the latter part of last year, we had kind of talked about that we wanted to have a graduate school or graduate college also here at Texas A&M. And so I submitted a request on behalf of our office to the provost to establish a graduate school. And with that, convened a task force to provide input to the provost in making a decision on whether or not that might happen. And so I am kind of here today then on behalf of that task force to talk about, maybe what we're thinking that graduate school might look like short term, and, perhaps what we might do going longer term. So the task force actually has its charge to, for this spring semester, focus on getting input from stakeholders. So examples, faculty senate, deans, associate deans for graduate studies, graduate students, council of principal investigators, and the like, on the establishment of a graduate school and its scope. And then the task force actually will continue its work into next year with the charge to provide some recommendations on how we might achieve the graduate and professional education goals that are in the new 2020 to 2025 University Strategic Plan. That task force is composed of, as is shown here, 13 faculty, 5 department administrators, 4 college administrators, 2 staff, 3 graduate students, and then 8 members of an executive committee that's composed of some university level administrators. Our timeline is we started in late February, and we are hoping that from mid-March to mid-April that we were going to visit different stakeholder groups and make presentations. And then in late April, we were going to come up with a draft report to the provost, and I would submit that to her in kind of 3rd week of May. And there would at least be a decision on whether or not we would make a transition this summer. And whether or not we decide to transition to a graduate school this summer or not, the task force would reconvene in September 2020, working on, as I said, coming up with recommendations to achieve our strategic goals and our university strategic plan. So that's our timeline that we're working on. And so I will kind of try to go a little into the graduate school proposal. I will provide these slides for you to review. And so I won't necessarily go through every detail. I'll highlight some of the points, okay? So I'll start with, kind of why we think we want to do this. And I will say that we've made progress over the past 20 years toward our aspirational goal to become a top 10 public institution. And so as we build on that success, we really still need to make some other bold strategic changes and some investments to continue toward that. And so one change would be transforming the Office of Graduate Professional Studies into a graduate school, and shifting a few areas of university level administrative oversight to the graduate school, and then some changes this summer, perhaps in enhancements to the governance structure, marketing, and some things related to graduate interdisciplinary degree program operations. And we believe that some of the benefits in doing this would be that this would, one, signify that graduate education is an integral part of the university's mission, and therefore strengthen the university's identity as a research institution in a way analogous to our peers. Because actually, I think 13 of our Vision 2020 peer institutions actually have graduate schools, colleges, or divisions. Also, there would be several other benefits to a graduate school. I'll just mention a few: improving sort of the effectiveness of how we administer and deliver programs, also encouraging interdisciplinary collaboration, enabling consistency in policies and practices across graduate programs. And that's not to say that they would all have the exact same things, but that we would, better leverage that. And then also maybe in terms of collecting data and things like that. Also, we believe that, kind of in summary, shifting to a graduate school would help us advance our goal to be known as a university that attracts the best students from the US and abroad, supports its graduate students comprehensively, and provides outstanding professional and career development programming. And hopefully thereby elevating us, our graduate programs in our community. So with this change to a graduate school, we talked about as a task force that we want to agree on some guiding principles, right? And so I'll just go through a few of those that we think are really important. One would be that the graduate school would exist to serve students, faculty, and graduate programs and advance excellence across the programs. Two, and most importantly, that it would be a student-centered approach, which means that then the school would be leading efforts to implement student-centered and optimal approaches for student success and well-being across programs. And that might sound trivial, but I think what that really means is that when we are coming up with policies and procedures and practices and things like that, we think about the impact on students, and we don't just think about the impact on the university or us as faculty and things like that. Also, that we would retain the fact that faculty play a critical role in the collective decision-making for graduate education, and not that the graduate school would be the one who just in itself makes policy. And also, we would recognize program diversity. We have a wide variety of graduate programs, from professional to research programs, STEM, humanities programs, and we want to respect those differences when we are establishing best practices. And then lastly, in terms of budgeting, that the core of the school's budget would consist of funds that currently are allocated to the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies, and additional funding should come from new investments. So those are what we believe are important guiding principles so that we do some of the things that we need to do. Okay, and so just a little bit of background, I'll skip over maybe some of these things, but because it's important to different groups, but this is sort of at least how we are organized right now. Our office reports to the provost. There is a group of what we call Graduate Operations Committee, which is associate deans responsible for graduate programs in each of the colleges. And they serve as an advisory committee to me. And then how we also then organize operations is at the department level, there are faculty and staff graduate advisors. Then at the college level, there is a committee composed of department representatives, and is chaired by the associate dean most times for graduate studies. And then there is a graduate council that this graduate, or the graduate committee then is the university level group. And that is how we actually facilitate new curriculum, changes in curriculum, new programs, and also policies and procedures. So they go through this process. So this table is really just sort of showing currently how we are organized and who's responsible for what. And so I will just maybe give an overview. So to the right is just saying these are the things that the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies is responsible for. And then the middle, these are the things in green that the departments are responsible for. And then over to the left, these are other university level organizations that are like admissions, facilitates graduate admissions applications. And then we have, ISS, Career Center, Writing Center, and the like. And so the important things I think about this is that it shows you, what decisions perhaps, that departments make. Like as an example, departments make admissions decision, and the faculty reside in departments. And that's sort of some of the things that it shows. Okay. So this is then the OGAP's organizational structure. And so you could see that we actually have 30 full-time staff. And we have, in addition to myself, who's a faculty member, we have one other faculty administrator, 3 directors, and 1 assistant director. And to the left here are just, I guess you could see this, support staff. And then we are sort of organized into several different areas, thesis and dissertation services, records processing, technology, data services, and then recruiting, student success, and professional development. So that's sort of how we are organized, and we have about 10 to 20 part-time undergraduate and graduate students and staff. So what are we sort of proposing to change? So one, I think if you can recall from what I described, we're talking about some changes short-term, perhaps for this summer, and then there would be some changes that might come about over really the next 4 to 5 years. And so they would be things that maybe would happen at the university level, and then some things that perhaps could happen in programs and colleges, all with the goal of really just advancing the university's strategic goals. So from a short-term perspective, what we are sort of proposing is one, in terms of the graduate unit, that OGAPS would be transformed into a graduate school, and the work that is overseen by OGAPS would then be overseen by the graduate school. That graduate faculty would become affiliated with the graduate school. Currently, they're kind of affiliated with the university because we do have a graduate faculty. And then this graduate council, the university level group that I told you about, we will change a little bit of the leadership to help provide a little more consistency for that group. So the graduate dean would be the chair of that committee, and then there would be some subcommittees to help facilitate its work. Something that I think next is important, graduate program directors. So currently, as I mentioned, we have faculty in every department that is responsible for helping to advance graduate studies in that department and kind of providing leadership for the graduate programs there. But the title of those positions are different. The roles and responsibilities, and even the benefits in the sense of whether some sometimes get a course relief or things like that, that varies. And so what we're proposing in regards to that is that the graduate school would work with the graduate council and really try to define and standardize the roles and responsibilities of the graduate program directors, and that the graduate school would help facilitate regular meetings amongst the graduate program directors across the different departments and really across the colleges, which doesn't happen right now. And they could share, best practices, and it would provide opportunities to provide professional development and training for them. And the idea here is that this would be a way for us to help provide a little more consistency of graduate programs across the university, because then there would be this network and there would be this sharing of those practices. And then we would also, the graduate school would lead an effort to really promote a unified marketing and communication strategy to promote Texas A&M graduate and professional studies across the US. Currently, what happens is departments, programs, or colleges are promoting their programs, but we're not promoting Texas A&M as a destination for a quality graduate education experience. And that would be what this entails. And then also we'd invest in some tools to strengthen our engagement with prospective students, current students, and alumni. And then lastly, some changes to sort of help facilitate interdisciplinary degree programs. And some examples of those are we have programs in genetics, toxicology. Those are what we mean by interdisciplinary programs. They cross colleges in terms of faculty. And we would be proposing some changes to some administrative things there to help facilitate those better. And that's what's kind of listed there. And so there would be several practices that would just continue. And that would mean that, like as an example, currently the university awards degrees that would continue. Programs would still be administratively housed in departments and colleges. And OGAPS would provide just the oversight then for certificates, graduate certificates, master's and doctoral programs. That is what we do now. Also, there would be no changes really to the administration and governance structure of those committees I described earlier. Also, the faculty would continue to establish admission standards, make admissions decisions, and perform discipline-specific recruiting. And then lastly, some things would continue with the interdisciplinary programs. So that's kind of, I went through those a little quickly. As I mentioned, I will give the slides for this, but I tried to highlight some of the things that we're talking about. And as I mentioned, then in academic year 2020 to 21, we'll continue the efforts to then focus on some recommendations that might help advance the goals in our university strategic plan. So what I'm here today to kind of share those thoughts with you and then get your feedback on the establishment of a graduate school and at least the, kind of the plan in terms of some short-term changes this summer, and then some plans to really work on some additional, changes over the next 4 to 5 years as we try to move forward to advancing to our goals of becoming a preeminent university and really being a destination for graduate education. So with that, I will end my presentation and take questions or comments that one might have or suggestions.
I guess I'll kick off with a quick question. Dr. Butler-Perry, how much would the day-to-day life of a student change if the school is established as a whole, and what changes can we expect to see in our day-to-day routine as a result of this?
Right, so that's a good question. What I would say is, I would think that immediately you would not see any changes. But what I would hope will happen is, as I said, for example, the graduate program director's part, that, many times graduate students say this, and even some faculty say this, things are so different, so you can talk to your peer in another program and they'll say, oh, I don't know, we do this differently there. And though some differences would remain, but some of the things that I think are related to the efficiency of how things would be done would improve. I think that right now, sometimes within a department, many, faculty, some faculty might do it this way and say, I like it this way, some another way. And by sharing these best practices, we might be able to say, well, this is really though what's more helpful for the student, and therefore be able to, kind of have some consistency of those best practices in there. So I would say that that would be something I would hope that would be changing, even next year, because I think that an awareness of best practices typically helps people who are, you know, scholars decide to embrace them. And therefore, I think we will see more best practices implemented in departments. And that is definitely a way that students will benefit. I think that, of course, we had thought, you know, about the financial support, but we, you know, have made a big change already for fiscal academic year 2021 in the sense of, you know, now kind of for PhD graduate assistants having fees paid. But I think we will probably be involved in helping to make that really more seamless. That will be something the graduate school could help. And that may be something that students see as a difference, because we could really then put out more information and be more transparent on how things should happen. And that's some of the examples, I think.
Please let us know what other questions you might have for her. You can type those into the chat and we'll try to facilitate the best to our ability.
Hi, I have a question. Dr. Butler-Purry, what are some areas or...
Youth from Department of Civil Engineering. So my question is, will there be a difference in the fee structure for such a transformation?
So that's another great question. Yeah, no, there is not going to be a tax for the graduate school that would be passed along to the graduate students. And one of the things that was really important when we were developing the guiding principles was the one that I mentioned about how, you know, because the departments and colleges are also concerned, would money be shifted from them to the graduate school? And the guiding principle is, I mean, I would say that we are pretty well resourced in, you know, I would just say comparably to many of our peer institutions. And so we will maybe over, you know, 5 to 10 years likely have growth just for, you know, growth of the university and supporting it. But we would not need some major influx of resources to be able to make this change. And so, yes, so there would not.
Dr. Butler-Purry, what do you see as the biggest challenge for this type of a change?
That's a really interesting question. So what I think might be the challenge, number one, is just that it's change. And while I would say that one would say an educational institution is really a place of change because students come and go and stuff like that, there is definitely a very serious inertia or steady state or constancy that also exists. And so I would say the challenge is sort of helping people see that there is a benefit to this, and that we really have some opportunities where change could help improve us, and therefore getting people on board with that. And I think that's the big thing is, you know, kind of getting the buy-in, because many people I have spoken with, they'll say, well, you know, okay, are we broken? And no, we're not broken. And so why do we need to change? And I think it's trying to help people say that there is a cohesiveness that we really still need to have. And generally the graduate school can rally people around that and play really a more integral part as a lead for that. And we kind of don't have the authority to really do that right now as an office.
We received a couple of questions via the chat. The first one is, could some of the issues and concerns that we as Texas A&M could not achieve the Vision 2020, i.e. become top 10 public school in the nation, could that have led to the idea of founding the graduate school?
So yes, I will say that that is definitely something that I think is a part of it. I think one thing I mentioned is that, for example, in shifting over to a graduate school, there would sort of be almost this immediate acknowledgement by the university that graduate education is just integral. It is equally as important as research, right? And teaching. And our peers they have a graduate school or a graduate college or whatever. And so when you sort of think about the university, you think about graduate education sort of being analogous to then those upper level administrator type of things. You find offices quite often in smaller universities where research is a part of the university, but it's not what, you know, it's not as integral as in a Research One university. So one, I think, yes, that change would, I think, help, because we believe that, for example, we have as great of a program as UT Austin, but that's not necessarily the perception in the US and internationally, right? And so there is sort of this where we have to promote our brand and help people see that we are a great graduate education destination, right? And so some of it, it really is this external visible acknowledgement that we are a player also.
So in line with that, we had another question come in from Aya where it says, what are your ideas on tactics for increasing recruitment for graduate students, and will graduate students be involved in these efforts?
So I would say in terms of, you know, ideas on how we increase recruitment, I think this whole idea of really marketing Texas A&M as a graduate education destination is really one of our fundamental things, and that is in the US. And so we are kind of working with, you know, like how you use platforms like using Google ads and things like that, where you kind of they're using artificial intelligence to kind of figure out what people's interests are, and then have things pop up that would say, oh, you know, civil engineering at Texas A&M, and it's because, you know, of what they're doing that suggests that perhaps this person is interested in a master's program in civil engineering. So that is one of the things that, you know, we are working on is, you know, some of these ad campaigns that really would, you know, try to market itself to adult learners, which means people who perhaps are not coming directly from undergraduate, but perhaps they've had some, you know, they're out there working professionally 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever. So that's one thing. I would say in terms of those who are finishing up undergraduate programs, trying to create better partnerships, maybe improve our undergraduate research experiences to have people see this, you know, or bring more people to campus and campus visits. So those are kind of some of the things that we want to help support and advance. And internationally, we are, you know, kind of trying to think about what's the strategy to work in partnerships with the colleges. Some have done some international recruiting and marketing and stuff, but we haven't been systematic. And so how could we try to help be a lead in organizing that so that we maybe are not duplicating, but we try to be cumulative in how we do that, because we definitely know we want to improve our international brand also. And then, yes, there are ways that graduate students could get involved in it. And some examples are when we are, for example, trying to market to institutions in the US. You can be ambassadors, those of you who have graduated from US institutions, to those, and even sometimes like we send undergraduates back to their high school, we could potentially help support sending, you know, graduate students back to their undergraduate institutions. Also, we are really trying to work on our social media and things like that so that you can also be our ambassadors in helping talk about your experiences at Texas A&M and helping people see what a great place it is.
Absolutely. So our last question that we have here is from Jasmine, and it says, how will the graduate school affect international students specifically?
Right. So I think that, so I think in several different ways. I would kind of go back to what I talked about in terms of maybe improving the best practices and how we do things. I do think that we need to improve the transparency of information. Like right now, of course, as someone who is prospective, it's not always easy to find out information. And so as an international student, the Indian Graduate Student Association, they do a lot to try to help prospective students know what to do, but that shouldn't be their job. That really should be the job of the university, right? And so how could we better provide information for prospective international students when they're considering us, and then when they've decided to come here, to help make that transition smoother. And I think that would be one area that we could help to improve by really being a conduit of information that, you know, could be available to them. And even creating campaigns. We have now a new CRM that we're working with to try to have campaigns where we would be communicating with a person when they apply, and then after they're admitted more regularly from a university perspective.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and just for all the work that you've put into this. I know from behalf of graduate and professional students, we appreciate all that you're putting into this. So Dr. Butler-Purry will make sure that we hyperlink those slides to this agenda and in the minutes of our next meeting for students to refer back to. And I'm sure if we have additional questions, we can make sure to forward it to the appropriate people. So
Right. Okay.
we're giving you a virtual fist bump.
Okay, thank you very much.
You.
And I would just say too, if you have concerns about this, we also want to hear those too, because part of what the task force, you know, our mission is to determine really what the stakeholders believe is important for us to do at this point. And so if there isn't really support for this change at this time, we have to, you know, we want to know that and convey that. So thank you very much for your time. And as I mentioned, be safe.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, thank you so much. Okay, everyone, we will continue with moving forward on the agenda for this evening. And the next item, as we're transitioning into our reports of officers, advisors, and administrators, the first section will be administrative comments with Dr. Schweller. Dr. Schweller, are you present with us this evening?
I am. Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we got you.
Okay. All right, howdy. So I hope everyone is doing well. I just have a few general updates on a few of our programs and events related to the Texas A&M COVID-19 policies. So first off, it's the OGAPS Research and Presentation Travel Award. So right now, OGAPS will not be accepting new applications for the travel award while TAMU travel restrictions are in effect. This does include the May 1st deadline for travel, June 1st through the end of August. Just a comment for current awardees from the February 1st deadline. Y'all should have received an email last week regarding canceling your travel plans and updating our office on your expenses. We will work with all travel awardees and their departments to help minimize the financial impact of any canceled travel to the best of our ability within A&M policies. If you have questions about that, please just email us at ogaps-travel-award@tamu.edu. Any questions on that? Okay. So also to try and, you know, make sure that everyone's graduate education is still trying to make it as normal as possible, we will be moving all grad Aggies professional development sessions to an online platform, likely Zoom. So please just visit our calendar. I think we'll all have some time to check out different sessions for professional development opportunities. So look for our calendar and send us emails if you're interested or have any questions. And then also just to update, in accordance with all the Texas A&M social distancing policies, many university events have been canceled, and we have had several events that we have had to cancel, including our annual Community of Scholars events, which includes dinner and dialogue, the Grad Aggie certificate ceremony and reception, and the CERTL banquet. Please just always check calendars and web pages or email event hosts if you have a question about an event. And then we also just would like to survey you. It's a 3-question survey in terms of recruiting efforts, since many graduate students, prospective graduate students can't come on campus. We're trying to figure out best ways to communicate with them. So if you can take this quick Qualtrics survey, it might help us in terms of developing a communication plan for prospective graduate students. And that's all from me, if there are no questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dr. Schweller. We appreciate that. We'll now continue on with the rest of the agenda, moving into the executive reports, calling on to Perna.
Okay, first things first, you all got a lot of emails over the past couple of days. I know some of the information is redundant, but please read through each and every email you get. This is an evolving situation, and you're still going to continue getting a lot of updates from the university. So like an hour ago, you all got the information that graduation is moved to a different date, etc. So please keep up with all of those and ensure that people in your department are aware of it. Maybe at the end of the week, send out a quick highlight of everything that's changed this week, just so that everyone is aware of it. Moving on, international students, please do not travel. A couple of students who went abroad are not able to come back in, and they're closing airports left, right, and center in a lot of other countries, and it's Canada closes borders, so a lot of stuff is happening with that. So cancel any travel plans you have unless it's completely unavoidable, because you won't be able to get back in for at least 2 weeks. Also, ISS, for those of you who are interested, ISS received permission from the Department of Homeland Security for international students to be enrolled online, which is what most of us are doing now. So that's completely legal. You don't have to worry about anything or changing anything. ISS has taken care of that for you. Next up, food. Some of you have complained that, you know, most of the grocery stores are somewhat empty these days. But if you contact them and work with the grocery stores, we were talking about it this morning, but they will work with you and you can have food in the next 2 days or so. It's just if you have special dietary restrictions and the food you require is gone, or you're simply not comfortable, this is one way to do it. We were also informed that H-E-B and Kroger and other grocery stores are trying to ramp up their delivery schemes. So they're thinking of potentially just delivering it straight to your house for added fee, I'm sure. So that will help if you don't want to travel or go to a crowded place. Next up, money-wise, all GARs, all GAs in general should have contacted your supervisor for alternative accommodations for working. One of you have already mentioned that, you know, they haven't said anything. So sooner or later, please get in touch with them and figure out how you're going to continue doing your responsibilities and jobs, etc., so that you continue to get paid. And the financial aid office also has an emergency loan pool. I know that some graduate students work hourly, and if that's canceled, this emergency financial aid pool is open to everyone, not just domestic students. A lot of international students are not aware of that. So please contact them. They're the ones who are in charge of dispersing that fund on a need-to-need basis. Finally, social distancing. This has been going around a lot. 6 foot distance between other humans. We're all sitting in the same room, but we're spread out literally across the entire room. So, and no in-person meetings larger than 15 people through March 31st. That's what the CDC guideline has said, and that's across the country. So please try and abide by that. Try and keep all your meetings on Zoom, etc. So I think that's all I had. Any questions, please feel free to type it in. We'll answer them as we go.
Very good. Thank you, Perna. I will now move forward with our legislative reports. The first piece that we have are for our GPSG officer elections. And so the order of how that will go is our presidential student body election will be held April 1st through the 3rd via an online platform. We'll have a chance to get to meet the candidates this evening, which is great news. I'm really excited about that. And so that'll be sent to our emails, also through our GPSG communication. So know that that platform will be available the 1st through the 3rd. The GPSG officer elections for the remaining 4 positions will be held during our Senate meeting on April 7th via a Google form, rather than having to submit an in-person ballot. So more information will be on how to do that as we approach that time, but know that we will proceed with officer elections via an electronic ballot. Moving forward, Danielle.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, I was trying to get my thing unmuted. So, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, if you don't mind, senators, if you don't mind just completing, it's a few questions on a Qualtrics form. We want to just send thank yous because we won't be able to say thank you in person because we're now remote, but we just wanted to send something. So if you could just fill it out, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Moving forward with the reports of our committee chairs, Paloma was unable to join us, but she did want to mention that our social events will be canceled for spring 2020. So be looking for those updates. Same for Chandler, interdisciplinary dinners. Chandler, do you have any other announcements you want to make?
No, that's good.
Perfect. Thank you, Chandler. Okay, we're transitioning into our special committee reports. Under the Student Research Week piece, that was another thing that was canceled. If you were signed up to compete as a competitor and you would like feedback on your abstract and your submitted materials, please complete that form by Thursday at noon. Also, if you were signed up to judge that event and would be willing to provide online feedback, please complete the form there by the 19th, Thursday at noon. We think that this is still a great opportunity to provide some feedback for people and receive feedback on those written pieces. So if you'd be willing to do that, please complete those to help out our Student Research Week committee. Our committee meetings are postponed for this evening in light of the current situation, as well as getting to meet some of our candidates. If you're on a committee, an internal committee for GPSG, expect some updates within the next couple of weeks of how we'll be able to finish this semester strong and be able to continue to move forward. Proceeding into our old and pending business, you can see there the link for GPSG Resolution 5304. This is a signed copy of the establishing a graduate or professional student ex officio member position on college-wide leadership teams. It's hyperlinked there for your reference. Moving forward, we'll go on to our new business for our GPSG officer candidate question and answer session. We're really excited about getting to see the people who are signed up to lead us for the next year. How this session will work is each candidate will have approximately 1 to 2 minutes to give a brief introduction describing their backgrounds, who they are, and why they chose to run. And then we will open the floor for about 5 minutes per position for questions. We ask to help us facilitate this process in the best manner that you please type those questions into our Zoom platform. That's going to be the easiest way that we make sure that all questions are answered in a timely manner. These individuals' photos, applications, and resume CVs are also hyperlinked in the agenda. Just as a reminder, tonight we're just meeting the candidates, and for our student body president candidates, we will vote on those via a Google or via our online platform, the 1st through the 3rd of April. And then for the remaining 4 positions, we will vote via a Google form in our next Senate meeting, which will be April 7th. So tonight we're just meeting them, and please be prepared with questions. With that, we're going to stop this sharing of screen here, and we are going to open the floor for our first candidate that we have from Mr. Dylan Armstrong. So Dylan, you have the floor for a brief introduction.
Thank you. Howdy, everybody. My name is Dylan Armstrong. I am from Mentor, Ohio, which is a small town outside of Cleveland. I did my undergrad degree at Ohio State University with a degree in political science. Currently at Texas A&M, I am a first-year master's student at the Bush School, Masters of Public Service and Administration on the Public Policy Analysis track, focusing in education policy. And I'm running for GPSG president because I truly want to be an advocate for the graduate and, graduate and professional students here. I believe that I will be able to increase visibility of GPSG, increase mental health resources, and help to reduce fees for students. I'm excited to answer your questions today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dylan. Then next we will hear from our second candidate for student body president. Please make Utej Vatapalli feel welcome.
Am I on? All right. Howdy. My name is Utej, and I belong to the Civil Engineering Department. Service above self has been a motto that I grew up with, and serving the Graduate Student Association has been my mission from the first day I stepped onto the campus. And in this spirit, I want to work on 3 major issues. Increasing endowment to give students more scholarship opportunities, have a systemic approach towards networking, and 3, improving mental health by increasing or empowering individual departments. Making graduate students' everyday life is my mission, and all I ask is to give me this opportunity to be the greatest GPSG president. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So the first question that we have, we'll start with Dylan first. So Dylan, please describe your experience with leading different student organizations and provide specific examples of how to foster a productive working relationship.
With my current experience with leadership would have to do with my current role as SGA president of the Bush School. As SGA president, I oversee the Bush School Student Government Association and am the lead executive for that role. With helping to foster an environment to help promote, proper work. At the beginning of the year, some of our committees did not have quality working relationships with the former administration. So that was something that was kind of thrown upon me day one. And I really sat down, met with the committee chairs, and just really listened to what they needed and worked with them to bring them back so they would start attending meetings again, making sure that they knew their concerns were heard, and actually, show them that we care to help contribute to a proper working environment.
Very good. Thank you, Dylan. Utej, same question. Describe your experience leading a student organization and provide specific examples of how to foster a productive working relationship.
So this goes back to a year before when I was leading the civil engineering department in my undergraduate as the president of the organization. So during which what I realized was we lacked representation on a national level. So first steps that I took towards solving that issue was to get two student chapters called the ASCE and the IRSC into the university. And not stopping there, I formed a team of 15 people, and I was lucky enough to get such a team. And we've gone ahead and won the India's biggest road safety challenge, which beats out 250 universities, and giving me a validation about my leadership skills and my team management abilities. And what I believe in order to foster good productive relations is that empowering each individual with individual tasks to feel them accountable and get best out of everybody. And also, since we are all here to make the best out of the opportunities that we get, empowering individuals and sending them out to solve different problems helps them get in network with different people, and thereby increasing their abilities and also making the best use of this platform.
So I'm going to ask the next question. So the president's role has a very erratic and hectic schedule. You'll constantly have to reorder your priorities and your plans to fulfill the duties of the role. As such, could both of you talk about how you intend to balance all your responsibilities and how you plan to prioritize between GPSG and personal academic responsibilities?
So I'll go forward with the answer. So currently what I do is have a Scrum-based approach, which is have a bi-weekly accountability chart, where I set up all the things and all the events that have to get done by specific times, like let's say Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Tuesdays and Saturdays are like my bi-weekly charts. So what happens is I make sure to work towards these tasks, at the same time accommodating anything that comes into from the GPSG part to get taken care of. And this system has been working very well so far, because I've been doing a lot of heavy lifting this semester in order to not have any other commitments in the coming times. And so far, this method hasn't failed me.
My approach would be, I'm a firm believer in a calendar. I live by my calendar and die by my calendar. So I'm very structured and really like to plan out my weeks and days. And with planning out my weeks and days, I always ensure to build in cushions throughout my day for unexpected projects, unexpected issues that have come up. As my role currently as SGA president, this is something I've experienced with putting out fires that have come up. And if I have the opportunity to serve as GPSG president, this is my only non-academic commitment that I have. It would be I have obviously my schoolwork, and other than that, it's the presidency, and that would be it. So I would be able to provide a lot of my time to the role.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you both. The first question in chat comes from Aya Bridgeland. So Dylan, what are some tangible ideas you have for increasing mental health awareness for graduate students?
I would say the first tangible idea I have for the increased mental health awareness for graduate students is I believe that, let me start over. I know from my experience at the Bush School, we have a student workroom, and I assume that most programs have a similar setup where there is a student workroom, where mailboxes are. That is somewhere that we should ensure has mental health resources, whether they're TAMU resources, grad school specific resources, or resources in the community available. Everyone should be able to easily know who they can talk to, how to get a hold of individuals when when these times of crisis come up. I would say also just communication through emails of resources, just make it painfully aware of all the resources that are available, if that answers that question. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to extend the same question to you, Tej. What are some tangible ideas for increasing mental health awareness for graduate students?
So I've been thinking about how to tackle the mental health issue. And the thing that comes to my mind is, who do we interact on a daily basis? Because these people can help us get to the point where we want. And I believe departments is where we have our most interactions. And empowering each individual department in order to promote mental health has two benefits. One, it increases productivity of students. Two, the students feel more secure that people that they're working with actually do care about them. And this is the approach that I'm taking in order to tackle mental health. And as I learn more information, I'm going to see how to get this done.
Very good. Thank you both. So I believe that we elaborated both on this next question here, but this is going to be the final question that we have for our student body president candidates. If we could elaborate a little more on the biggest need for how to tackle this within a graduate and professional student body government perspective for promoting mental health awareness on campus. Yes, please start.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
I lost a little track of, yeah.
Tying it in a bow, if we were to put a summary together of ways that we can approach this need within a graduate and professional student body president's role, what can we list? Oh, we're seeing multiple come in. What would be the biggest need for graduate students in the mental health awareness area, and how can we tackle it?
As I mentioned before, the biggest concern. So let me establish a little background over here. A couple of days ago, I had to use I was in need of someone to talk to, and so the first thing that we have access to is the insurance-based like the medical services, the therapeutic services that we have. But the problem is, when I tried to reach out to these people, I had to schedule a call with them, which didn't clearly go through. And I did this with 2 to 3 more people. And that is when I realized that this problem is not just with me. It could be with everybody who wants to reach out to help. And where is that one particular source that can have that impact on everybody's life? And that's where the empowering the departments came into picture, and working with each individual department head to promote mental health issues and showing them the clear benefits that they have by investing a little in this program, I believe we can improve mental health on the graduate student level. And I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. Dylan?
I will say I agree with what was previously said. And to build off of that, I will also say that I think the issue really boils down to ensuring that students know that resources are available, and then ensuring that the access of those resources are widespread enough to maintain and for everyone to have good quality access to it. We are a very large school, which means any and all mental health resources on campus should be large as well to truly meet the need of the student body. And I just don't think that is currently getting done. So I would say overall, just increasing services across the board is what really is needed to help tackle the issue of mental health on campus. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we'll now take final statements from our student body presidents. Just real brief 1 minute last thoughts for us to consider. Dylan, please start.
As I've said, everyone, my name is Dylan Armstrong, and I'm a first-year Bush School student running for president of GPSG. As previously mentioned, the focus of my platform is on increasing GPSG's visibility within the Texas A&M community to ensure that every graduate and professional student on our campus knows we're here to help and here fighting for them. Expanding mental health offerings here at the university, because mental health should never be a reason that someone isn't able to reach their full potential, and reducing student fees. College and academia is an extremely expensive world, and the university does not need to be making it more expensive to us. And it is our role to be an advocate for the students here and ensuring that they are able to be prosperous in all ways possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Utej, final thoughts?
Hi, Utej again. I believe the 3 pillars of success for a president are passion, experience, and commitment. I believe I've displayed all the 3 qualities in me in order to make myself confident that I can contest for this position. I am ready to relentlessly fight for what benefits the Graduate Student Association, and also be open to criticism and cynicism. So improving graduate students' everyday life is my mission, and I'll be working relentlessly towards it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both very much. Just as a reminder, April 1st through the 3rd, we will have our voting for our student body president election. That'll be via our online platform that will be communicated through email and through the different graduate and professional student government portals. So be looking forward to that. We're proceeding on with the agenda, moving into our executive vice president and speaker role. Our candidate Rio O'Neill is running, and he'll be here with us this evening. Rio, please give us a brief 1 to 2 minute intro to yourself and your background.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Maybe? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. And can you see me? Awesome. My name is Rio. Like the delicious Whataburger, I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. I went to the undergrad University of New Mexico to study technical writing. And while there, I did a lot of AmeriCorps during the summers. Public service has kind of been instilled in my heart. After graduation, I spent about 2 years working at a domestic violence shelter. And while there, I was doing a lot of community outreach and writing a lot of grants. And while it was great work, I found that I was starting to plateau in terms of my abilities. So I came to grad school to learn new skills. Like Mr. Armstrong, I am a first-year MPSA student at Bush School. And the main reason I'm running for speaker is because not only do I love public speaking, I really enjoy systems, and I'm kind of a creature of habit. So learning parliamentary procedure is something that's been on my list for a while now, and that will be drilled into my brain by the time we start this next fall semester. And if there's one thing that I also want to add, I have a vision for how the Senate body communicates information from our meetings to the rest of your peers in your departments. And that's going to be one of my main projects as a speaker this next semester. But thank you for your time today, and I look forward to working with you all.
Okay, Rio, the first question that we have for you, describe your experience using parliamentary procedure and how do you see that in effectively running GPSG Senate meetings moving forward?
The majority of my exposure to parliamentary procedure has been through my work on boards through nonprofits. So as of right now, I'm a Bush Board Fellow with the American Red Cross here, and I go to those meetings and I get to observe how the executive director follows Parley Pro to establish new business and old business with the organization, and the inner workings between board members and how that plays into the agency's decision making. Also, when I was working at the domestic violence shelter, I worked very closely with the board there to help with their fundraising efforts. So with that, I was able to observe how the process is supposed to be followed. And I know that while people can have ideas, you still have to go and play by the rules in order for those to be brought forward and to be legitimate. So I'm looking forward to having somebody who's committed to the parliamentary procedure role in GPSG, because I believe we're going to have an established individual for that to help hold me accountable in that way. But yes, I think it's an important part of the GPSG Senate meetings.
Hey, Rio, the first question that we have from the Senate floor is along the lines of graduate mental health as well. Describe your approach and your strategies as the speaker and executive vice president to promote mental health awareness for graduate and professional students on Texas A&M's campus.
That's a great question. My commitment to mental health, and just as a person in general, I'd like to think I'm pretty open and talk about, feelings and stuff. And I think that that is something that should be encouraged amongst our student body. I've been to CAP several times, and I think it's a great place. And part of the way to spread the word is just to get people comfortable talking about the services. Because I think that mental health could still be something that's stigmatized. And by normalizing it, making it okay for people to see that, you need help sometimes, it's okay to go and get it. I think that normalizing that attitude is a big step in getting people to talk about mental health, getting to talk about the resources for it, and in effect, increase awareness of it on campus.
Okay, Ria, and then our final question for you, and kind of in addition to your final thoughts, final statements, is you had mentioned a platform of communicating stuff that happens within Senate to the larger graduate professional student body whole. In what ways or strategies will you implement this to make sure that all students are aware of what's happening with Senate?
Yeah, so I think that early on, in accordance with operant conditioning, we need to be on this right away. So as soon as the fall semester would start, I will already have a system developed, and I'll run it through my partners at the executive committee here to make sure that it's sound. But that will be shared with senators immediately. And with it, it will be almost like a summary, because I know that at times, whenever we get all these emails, we don't necessarily read them as closely as we should sometimes. So I think that emphasizing bullet points with this brevity and with these emails, and they will summarize what we talk about in the meetings. And I think that they should go out to each senator, and each senator will be tasked with distributing that through their department's listserv, getting that to the student body. And I think that this is going to be a regular thing, and this is something that the senators will have to be held accountable for, because there's a lot that goes on in our meetings, and I'm not convinced that a lot of it goes to the student body. It's kind of like an insular thing that happens. This information should be shared. It should be good.
Very good, Rio. Do you have any final thoughts to share with Senate?
As of right now, I do not.
Okay, thank you so much, Rio. Again, the remaining 4 positions, including the speaker, executive vice president, and our other vice president positions, will be available via a Google form in our next Senate meeting, which will be April 7th. Moving forward with our vice president of university affairs position, we have Chandler Wilkins. And Chandler, please give us a brief 1 to 2 minute intro of yourself and a little bit about your background.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, I'm assuming so. My name is Chandler Ian Wilkins. I'm born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. I did my undergrad at Iowa State University, where I majored in community and regional planning. I then came here to pursue my master's degree in urban planning. And now I'm a first-year PhD student studying urban and regional sciences. So since the second year of my master's degree, I've gotten involved with the GPSG, first as the Vice President of University Affairs, I'm currently running for, and then now currently as the Diversity and International Student Affairs Committee Chair. I decided to run for the VPUA position again because I have some ideas of ways to improve the position. Before, I created a template for creating external committee reports. Then I also created wrote a little handbook for how to do the position. And as I was reading over that a few weeks ago, I found some gaps and some potential things that could change in the future. I have some ideas right now. I know I'm on a limited time constraints, so I won't share them all, but the first would be making sure that senators, when we go off to our external committees, making sure that the external reports are easily accessible for everyone else. We sit on a lot of committees throughout campus, and oftentimes that information isn't disseminated to all of the senators, and we don't know who sits on what. And I want to make sure I demystify that process a little bit. That's one thing that I plan on doing, but I'm open to discussing more after this question and answer session. So thank you.
Very good, Chandler. Thank you. The first question that we have for you is, how would you engage senators to actively participate in legislative proposals and advocacy on behalf of GPSG students at Texas A&M?
So I think the first thing would be to actually letting the senators know what they can do. I think oftentimes some of that information is not shared as well. So senators may not know what they can and what they cannot do, and that those opportunities are even out there for them. So I would say first, getting the word out there that these opportunities are there, but then also providing more information as to what they could possibly do with those. So it's good to know the positions are there, the opportunities are there, but we also need to know what can we actually do in them and what benefit we can get out of it as graduate students, and what the benefit the university can get out of it.
Hey, Chandler. Okay, so I'm going to ask your next question. I know that you talked about organizing committees, and I know that you've served in this position before, but do you have like any other examples of an experience you've had organizing committees within a larger organization? And then can you touch on a little bit some of the, maybe expanding on some of the ideas you had for like showcasing the different people in committees and things like that?
Yes. So the first one that I thought of was back in my undergraduate. I was the president of my fraternity. And then for the first time in a decade, we were putting on this pageant. I had never put on a pageant before in my life, but I was chosen to be the chair of that pageant. So I had to get all the little committees together. I do my research first. I had to figure out what I need to do since I've never done it before. So I had to organize all the committees and the committee chairs, and then clearly outline what I expected from them. And then I also asked what they expected from me. Since I had never done this position before, I wanted to be like a learning process for the both of us. So I laid out my expectations, and they laid out their expectations from what they wanted from me. So each week we had a meeting about how things were going, and they provided updates to me. I provided updates to them. And in the end, we're able to host I think a really good pageant, in my unbiased opinion. And then we were featured in the newspaper at Iowa State and all that good stuff. But through that experience, really opened my eyes to how to manage groups. There was a lot of us, and we're all at different universities, so I had to try to find a way to loop all of us in, even though we're on different campuses. And in the end, it was successful. So I do have prior experience, aside from the GPSG, and managing committees. But then going to some of the other ideas that I had for the position. First would be adding, I tried to do this before, but I'm doing more official now, but adding the external committees to our actual GPSG calendar, so we know who was meeting when, and then adding, so I'll add the date, the time, and then the representative for that particular meeting. So then senators can know which committee or council is meeting when, and who is the person they need to contact if they want something or an issue raised in that meeting. Another one, which I spoke about a little bit, was creating that template And then also adding that template to the training that we give to the senators in the beginning, the senator orientation that we do every year or at the beginning of every semester. So everyone knows what the responsibilities are. So I know before we first did the committee reports or template reports, we introduced at the mid-semester point, and then it was kind of, it was hard for senators to get into it because it hadn't been introduced before. So I think introducing that in the beginning and letting people know these are the expectations that we have of you as a senator in this external committee would be very helpful. And then also for the report that I would give out each week, I would make sure that the link to those external committees are in my report each week. So if you can't find it in the drive, senators are able to just click on the link that I have in my report, and they'll take them directly to where the external committee reports are. So we're able to see what each committee is talking about for each week. Yeah, then also I would just continue to do the work that I'm doing now and supporting all graduate students here to make sure that they feel welcome and supported here on campus.
Very good. Thank you, Chandler. Do you have any final comments that you would like to add as we close this position or as we move forward with the next position?
No, I think that's it.
Perfect. It is not closed. Our voting portal will be open the 7th of April. I misspoke. But thank you so much. We're continuing on with the agenda, moving into our Vice President of Information candidate. And I believe that we have Rohan Singh Wilco joining us from a distance. Rohan, the floor is yours for a brief introduction.
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Rohan. My name is Rohan Singh Wilco. I did my undergraduate back in India in civil engineering. After doing my undergraduate, I worked for around 2.5 years. While working, I felt the need of higher education, due to which I made a decision to start my PhD. Currently, I'm enrolled in my PhD and doing in my second year of PhD at the civil engineering department. I've been involved with the GPSG for the past year as the senator for my department, and I was also a committee member for the Student Research Week. During this involvement, I have grown to appreciate the work that the GPSG does in advocating the voice of graduate students. This is what led me to volunteer for this position, and I have chose the position of VPI because I feel this is the position which best suits my skill set. I'm open to all questions and answers.
Very good, Rohan. Thank you so much. The first question that we have for you is, how would you disseminate information from the university-wide and GPSG government relations to our local grad student organizations to ensure students are informed and engaged?
Currently, I believe the senators that are coming in the GPSG Senate, they are individually responsible for disseminating knowledge to their respective departments. The best which I can do to make sure that the information is disseminated is, one, I can come up with a set of guidelines. That is what I intend to do. I intend to come up with a set of guidelines for the senators which they can follow, which they may follow for better dissemination of knowledge. And the second is, I plan to come up with a template of the minutes which I would maintain myself, and I would distribute that template to all the senators so that it would be easier for them to take minutes and disseminate it.
All right. So the second question is going to come from me. Can you list some specific examples that you may have as far as experience with using different communication tools? So, social media, desktop management, as far as like website management, graphic design, anything of that sort?
Yeah, means just before applying to graduate school, I maintained my own website. I have my own website on WordPress. I have maintained that. And back in my undergraduate college, I had volunteered for a number of different events. And for all those events, I was maintaining the social media pages as well. So I do have sufficient experience handling social media and websites.
Hey, Rohan, we have a question from one of the senators in a private chat here.
Yes.
In regard to the presentation that Dr. Butler Purry just did on a new graduate college for Texas A&M University, what challenges and opportunities do you see for disseminating information for graduate students within Texas A&M?
Having a graduate school, having an overall graduate school, I feel it would be very easier to disseminate knowledge, because all the colleges will then be governed by one graduate school. I think that is a very positive step, and the GPSG would work hand in hand with the graduate college if it comes into effect in the next year, to make sure that this dissemination is easier.
Okay, very good. And then any final comments, statements that you would have for our senators on the floor?
So, see, everybody has been speaking about mental health. Even I am personally concerned about mental health of graduate students. I am currently volunteering for a meditation organization. I feel the biggest challenge for mental health is the acknowledgement that mental health is an issue. Means most of the graduate students do not even acknowledge that mental health is an issue. If I get elected to this position, I also want to work towards the graduate students acknowledging the fact that mental health is important and should be taken seriously.
Absolutely, very good. Thank you so much, Rohan. We
Thank you.
appreciate you. Okay, moving forward with our final vice president position with our vice president of finance, we have Ms. Deborah Martogi with us this evening. Please give us a brief 1 to 2 minute introduction and background of your experience.
There we go. Did you guys hear me from the beginning? All right, cool. Sorry about that. Anyways, again, I'm Deborah. I'm a PhD student in the Petroleum Engineering Department. I did my undergrad at North Carolina State University, where I studied civil engineering towards the structure, which pretty much is building stuff above the ground. And then I did my master here in civil engineering at A&M, where I studied geotechnical engineering, where I pretty much built stuff underneath the ground a little bit. And then now I'm going further by going into petroleum engineering. But anyways, I've been active in a lot of organizations, going from like when I started my master degree. Most of the position that I have is sponsorship and finance. So initially I worked for Indonesian Student Association because I'm from Indonesia. So that's how I find my community. And with them, we have like about 100 people in the organizations, and we raised about 7,000 and 4,000 in the second year for one of our events. And then moving along, this year I actually participated in one of the GPSG premier program, which is Student Research Week. And I'm actually managing the funds here with Emily, our director, where she managed a fund from the departments basically, while I manage the fund to pretty much order food, and then the operational funds that we get from GPSG. So I believe that I'm a strong candidate for this position because I'm able to manage about like 50K more funds already. And I'm pretty sure I can save money for GPSG in the year coming when I'm doing this position. That will be all for me.
Deborah, thank you for your introduction. The first question that we have for you is in line with kind of your final statement there. How would you prioritize and make difficult choices when an organization might be faced with limited fiscal resources?
So when we want to try to prioritize something, well, we have to kind of like pretty much differentiate which one is the most important part first. We will probably need, that's why we have a budget first, right? So we have to follow the budget. And then once we establish a budget, those are going to be our main pretty much things that we want to spend. If we don't have enough budget, then we have to go around the departments to ask for money or ask from outside resources. And I'm pretty good at that. I could probably ask, for example, if we are trying to do an event, I usually ask for a discount, right? Or even for sponsorship. I've been very good at that. And for student research week, for example, I managed to save for food for about more than $1,000 to $2,000. I managed to provide, last year we only have one food provider, but this year I managed to actually invite about 6 to 8 food provider and actually manage the same costs with last year by bringing in that variety. So I can find my ways around to be able to kind of like manage in crisis in terms of money. So.
All right, and then the second question is, can you please provide specific examples of your experience using financial tools? So like example, budget or accounting software, or just like what type of ways have you, what financial tools have you used?
Sorry, I cut you off there. Yeah, sure. So I'm an engineer. So the first tool I use is Excel, basically. So I budget myself with the Student Research Week. I even have to figure out what the last year committee did, because the Excel spreadsheet that was given was not in pretty much calculation mode. It was just like text. So since I'm an engineer, I kind of also use my problem solving tools to kind of basically manage my budget. I'm pretty good with Excel, so I can even like create codes with Excel to kind of like manage the budget. So based on my experience, I think Excel would probably be enough in order to pretty much maintain this position, basically.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Deborah, we have a question via a private chat here. In what ways can you creatively use funds within GPSG to best serve all students within Texas A&M University?
So as I said earlier, I want to be transparent from the beginning with the budget too, and I will remind about the budget. And then with the creativity with the budget, I will try to save the money first on our budget, and try, even though I will try to make sure that the expense is never more than what the budget is. I will try to even like save as much as I could. So once I have those extra funds, I can probably allocate. I know that we already have cleared out the possibility of us giving for PhD student the fees waive starting next fall. So now the next thing would be probably creating more opportunities to help fund our master students, especially the international students. So I want to bring this into attention because I know that a couple of mentees that I have, because I'm in a grad peer mentoring program, and they're having issues with funding with their master's advisor pretty much, because they have less duration. So I want to try to probably allocate more money towards helping the member of the Senate and the graduate students and professionals community to get funding there, and also probably create more variety in the events so that we have more basically to address those mental health issues that we talked about earlier. That would be my answer.
Thank you, Deborah. Final statements or thoughts for us to consider?
So yeah, it seems like since my position is a bit financial, but the main issues that we have been talking about is mental health. And then you guys already talked about like some good resolutions there. But then now again, we're talking about coronavirus here. So I guess one thing that we could probably work towards in the near future, especially now that we are going to be very self-isolated, and usually when you're alone in your thought, that's when you started to become like very challenged with your mental health basically. So maybe we can create a platform meanwhile when we are kind of like apart from each other. I know that we have to keep some distance. Maybe creating an online resource tool will help us to kind of like resolve this meanwhile, so that we don't have anyone among us that we are losing pretty much. So that would be my last talking point.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Deborah. Okay, we will proceed with the rest of the agenda. So on the agenda there, in the next item, you will see a vote of confidence form for our GPSG student body presidents. For the two candidates that are running within this position, we have Dylan and Utej, in line with what we had with our previous Senate meetings and passing a previous bill earlier this year. In order to vote on a global-wide or a university-wide perspective for all graduate and professional students, we needed a vote of confidence to place those candidates on the ballot. Again, this position or this particular form does not cast your vote for either individual. It does place a majority vote on if they can be placed on a ballot for all graduate and professional students at Texas A&M University. And so we ask that you please follow that link there to place your vote of confidence for both of those different candidates. And then you'll also see a link to provide your department. Under this particular part, as per GPSG Constitution rules, we will count one vote, one ballot from each department. So I know that we're all at a distance and we might have multiple senators from each department. The way that we will proceed that in the most effective and appropriate way is whatever the first vote is from a duplicate department will be the one that will be casted. And so please cast those vote of confidence forms for our graduate and professional student body president candidates. We need to have those in, great question. Those need to be in by the end of this week, which is the 20th of March, so Friday. If you're sitting here on this call, we encourage you to do that as soon as possible. But if you need more confidence and time to evaluate their CVs, their applications, that form will close at 5 p.m. on Friday this week, March 20th. Thank you for that question. Okay, we will continue on with our announcements for wrapping up the agenda here. We had a correction on one of the pieces that we had earlier with the CDC has new rules and new compliances of when we downloaded this agenda from previous comments. So in a meeting room, their recommendation is that there should be no more than 10 people within 6 feet of each other. And so earlier that was 15, that number has since moved to 10 to be compliant with our CDC rule or regulation. So please make sure that you're staying safe out there. If you have additional concerns or questions that relate specific to graduate and professional students, you'll see a hyperlinked area there for GPSG concerns for emergency preparedness regarding the coronavirus. So if there are certain situations that are unique to you as a graduate or professional student, we ask you please fill out that Qualtrics form, and we're going to do our best to disseminate it to our OGAP's office, making sure that they hear from our graduate students. If you're also curious about what's going on with coronavirus, you can follow that link there. It's all the most recent updates for coronavirus and as it pertains and relates to Texas A&M University. You can find that there. I'm sure that you've seen that via a couple of emails this week. Also, if you are teaching a course or you are assisting with a course, the keepteaching.tamu.edu resource has a lot of online preparation for moving your class to an online platform. We encourage you to check that out, as well as the other helpful resources that you see hyperlinked below. Our Vice President of Research Office also released a research guidance statement during COVID-19. And so for all who might be conducting research, here on A&M's campus, whether that's through your own individual research or through your lab, we encourage you to read that statement that was updated earlier today. So please scroll through that, be familiar with what's currently going on as it relates to research, research travel, and proposal submissions and award management here on Texas A&M University's campus. So please follow that link. Another resource that we have access to, and I believe that there are multiple online platforms that have opened up their membership for people during this time. SquareCap would be another one that was sent via email earlier this week. So they have open access through July 1st and includes all features at no cost to students. So if you need an additional resource to transition your course to an online platform, that might be something worth looking into. As we mentioned earlier, the OGAP's Community of Scholars dinner that was scheduled for the 7th is canceled, as well as the GPSG banquet that we see on the 27th. We have 2 remaining meetings this semester, and we appreciate all of your flexibility and just willingness to be awesome with us as we navigate this unique situation. The remaining meetings will be held via Zoom in an online platform. You'll see both links there during our 5:30 normal time. The April 7th GPSG meeting will be whenever we vote for the remaining 4 positions for our officer spot. So during that, we want to reiterate the time frame for it. Each department or graduate student organization will be able to cast one vote for the officers, including all 5 positions. And so please make sure that we have your department represented so we can move forward with electing our candidates. And then our final meeting will be held on the 21st via Zoom. So with that, stop sharing our screen here. We want to make sure we don't see any other comments in chat. We need a motion to adjourn.
Utech with Department of Civil Engineering. Motion to adjourn.
Perfect, thank you. We need a second. Thank you, Philip, from via chat. We appreciate it. Probably moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, virtual fist bump, say aye. All opposed, ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody. This meeting will be posted in an online recording. We appreciate you, and we will see you on our April 7th meeting. Have a great evening, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day.